welcome to our very special first FitFilliate. Tony's laughing at me already. FitFilliate live event, our town hall today. Welcome to everyone who's joining us either on Facebook or YouTube, and also within our stream. And today we're going to be hosted and facilitated by Mr. Chuck Bennington. So,
no, I am presenting. You are hosting and facilitating. Otherwise, this would have been a jumbled shit show that never happened.
That's why I was laughing. Your seamless transition right into character was hilarious. I was like, this feels like Wednesday.
Yeah.
And yeah, man, just I don't know, man. We are continually and consistently, like Tony and I and FitFilliate as a company, and Jamie and Lisa and everybody involved, and like that includes most of you guys. Like, we're trying to put our money where our mouth is, and a lot of stuff is very much so ready, fire, aim. So this is the first time that we've done this, but we want to do more.
Bear with us.
But yeah, man. So looking to just kind of talk through some recession and inflation stuff, and then kind of talk about what to do about it, and want to have a little time at the end to kind of talk and ask questions. And a lot of it will kind of be broad ranging, but Lisa's going to be clicking through because when I tried to screen share on it, we bricked the whole thing. So pardon if we're just, back and forth at all. And then anything that you guys think about, unless I'm specifically asking for like questions or comments on an area, just drop into the chat anytime as you guys go. Cool. Away we go. So yeah, I came up with an acronym, but I probably didn't need to, and it doesn't really make a whole lot of a sense, but this is what we're going to be talking about. Sweet.
Wouldn't be CrossFit without an acronym. Cool.
Ta-da. Probably not what you were expecting on like the first slide of something about inflation and recession, but here's the thing. It's similar to the group call. We got to have goals. And my goal to put out into the universe, to have all of you guys as people that love me, hold me accountable, and make it true, is I want to come out of this period of economic uncertainty and where everybody else is not focusing on shit, not executing the way that we all can. I want to make some real money, and I want to come out of it with a 911 Turbo because I'm sick of wanting one of those and I'm ready to have it. Cool. You guys should actually have like some goals for yourself and a vision. You should be able to see that goal coming true and see yourself in it. And if you can't, it's probably pretty hard to work hard if you don't really have something that you're working towards. So let's do good work, and how that thing comes to exist in my life is through providing more value to better humans. So I have an ability to help make you guys better, and I also have an ability to provide more value, and I seek to believe the universe will reward me as such. Cool. Next. So what's up? Do you guys know what recession and inflation actually mean, or are they just kind of like words that float around? I've got a degree in business finance. I spent some time in the finance world. We're not going to really like deep dive in any of it because it honestly isn't that important. We're just not in expansion. We're in retraction. It's not growing. It's declining. Inflation, what I think a lot of people focus on incorrectly, is myopically paying attention to only the idea of goods and services rising in price, but not also paying attention to the dollars that have to buy those goods and services are declining in value. That's not always a bad thing, and there are ways that like we can play the game if we understand the game and we're willing to like ask for help and play at higher levels. But we'll kind of keep going. So next. Cool. There's a lot of words. I'm not going to read through all of it because what I'm going to do is have Lisa send the slides and we'll make it available because we're also going to use it for lead gen. So just it'll float out there. But the biggest thing is like it becomes a very fear-driven environment to operate in, and fear is important. It's necessary for survival. It's a lot of what got us here, but humans are really good at focusing on the negative. We have a negative attention bias. That's part of how you avoid saber-toothed tigers. But at a certain point, like that becomes a bottleneck for your own success. There is some truth in where'd everybody go?
It's all right. I've just got the full slide on. I'm doing magic stuff.
Okay. I was
Everyone's here.
Me, I'm on my own, and all of my fears and insecurities have actually materialized. They thought it was so bad, they all just quit. So I like seeing people's faces. I would rather have that.
Yep.
Plus, then people can like raise their hands, or I can ask for kind of like gesturing pieces, like, you know, nod if that makes sense, raise your hand if this applies to you. And like I said, I'll send the slides to everybody. So thanks for learning in real time with us. Cool. You guys need to really think about the idea of a recession as that is a them problem, not an us problem. We have the ability to choose to act differently and choose to make different decisions and choose to learn different ways to view these things. You can't make that decision for other people, but you can help them make better decisions for themselves. The economy at scale, globally, locally, a lot of that is a factor beyond your control. So you do what you can with what you have, but you need to understand what is true and what is a construct that just exists in your mind. For a lot of people in your market, whether that's your competitors or your clients or your coaches, they will be thinking in terms of scarcity because a bunch of idiots on TV tell them those things over and over and over on repeat. Whereas if everybody's like, hey, things are good, guess what? We would materialize that reality and people would just spend money accordingly and the economy would self-correct. But unfortunately, like that is not that simple or easy. But you guys are not in the place of a lot of your clients who are employees. For those of you who have employees, and this is off of the back of the group call, what are you doing to make sure that your staff, your employees, and your coaches, they have the ability to thrive rather than starve at present and in the future? You guys have the ability to exist outside of a commoditized model, and you have the ability to change anything and everything in your business when you see fit. It's important to remember that you don't sell fitness, you solve problems, and you get to control conversations of both price and value. Your finances have a fucking limitless ceiling if you so choose. You guys are entrepreneurs. You are business owners. You are one of the few people that exist in the world that have a machine that has the ability, if you are good enough and you chose to operate it as such, to make infinity dollars come out the back end. I am not as smart as Jeff Bezos. I'm not as hardworking. So like the value structure hasn't rewarded me as such. But like, dude, you guys can do whatever you want. Not everybody can. Keep that in mind, but that also means that you have the responsibility of taking those actions. Next. Inflation. Really, this slide is just that it's not just about the cost of goods going up, it's also paying attention to the value of the dollar going down. And we'll talk about what we can actually do with that a little bit strategically later on. But it's double-edged, and so it cuts deeper faster than you guys initially appreciate. We'll go through a couple pieces of just like wrapping your head around that. But if you have been unaware of your margins, or if you haven't really paid attention to profit, you will no longer have the opportunity of making that a luxury. That will become a necessity. That is like somebody who wants to be healthy but refuses to drink any water at all. At some point, that will not work. And part of these periods of economic uncertainty where the game gets harder to play, it can be an opportunity to get a lot of things right that are easy to ignore otherwise. But we'll talk kind of about how that practically plays out for you next. Cool. These are periods of expansion. This is like when the times are good. And what's probably worth noting is that a lot of them are fairly long. And if you seek to live a longer life rather than a shorter life, and you seek to keep playing the games of business and professional development, keep this in both the front and the back of your mind, that there are a lot of good times where things are working in your favor. Potentially in the past, that was when you were a little bit, honestly, lazier. Maybe you didn't try as hard. Maybe you didn't work as hard because you had the luxury of not needing to. And like, fair enough. That's all of us. That's human nature. That's why we had the agricultural revolution. That's why we had the industrial revolution. Like, we like it when things play in our favor, and generally we like to make more things play in our favor. Big economic cycles, you get to control your actions in, but do keep in mind that like this too shall pass, and the periods of things moving forward productively for more people in an easier way is more often the case, because the people that do move markets, it is usually in their best interest that things go in everybody's best interest. So we will play the game harder in the interim in these little gaps, because that's how we can really get ahead. But when you guys fix your shit and when things are easy, that is the time to speed up. That is the time to try harder. So right now, while you have to work on building the habits and the behaviors, that if you can fucking win here, when we get back to like, you know, early coming out of COVID, when the world's economy was growing like it never had at any other point in human history, you guys just get to sit back and print money because you did all the fucking hard work. Cool. More good times than bad, and good times last longer than bad. You'll see that next. Okay, you can drop faces out for a second, but then I'll give you a cue to bring the faces back in. So this is looking at the expansion and retraction. Hopefully you guys can figure out which is which. Faces back. Can you guys figure out which is which? The really big ones that are really long, that is the expansion. Those are the good times. The little shitty periods are little shitty periods, and they are not disproportionately shitty. And so if you're like, well, in looking at that, it seems like maybe I really don't have to worry about it because like it might be over before we have to do anything. You will see when we start looking at margin why that is a fucking fool's errand, because you probably had the ability to not pay attention to the small stuff for so long to such a large magnitude in those big peaks that little bit that it actually gets off in a recessionary period is enough to take you out of the game completely. Cool. Next. Faces out. So kind of the summary shot to show you both like duration and magnitude. Duration, how long, magnitude, how high of the expansion, the recession. They're good for longer periods of time. And when they're good to a better degree. Faces back. So it'll pass, but would it benefit you if you acted as if it wouldn't? How good would you have to be at the game if the game only ever got harder to play? Next. Faces out. This should be terrifying to you guys. Faces back. Does everybody see exactly what direction that whole thing goes? Cool. Does anybody see how there's very little room for it to actually like do a whole lot else? Whoa, look at Lisa. She's a fucking hacker.
Learning on the fly.
So it's just not expenses going up. And if you're trying to figure out like, you know, well, if the dollars are harder to buy the things that I need, where is the difference in that? This is looking at the purchasing power of the dollar declining, where if you think about like COVID supply chain issues, that's supply and demand curve. If there's less of a thing that people want, that thing has to be worth more because more people want it and there's not enough of it to go around. That is the rising expenses. But now I'm trying to buy a loaf of bread with a money-filled trash can. That's inflation. Cool? Both things exist, and they are that double-edged sword that probably cut deeper, further, faster than most people appreciate until they really start thinking about it. Cool. Next. So what to do about it? Make a decision. And you guys can read those. I'm not going to read out loud to you because it's not fourth grade, but it's worth spending a little bit of time on not just what we talked about on the kind of the group call and not where we've gone with a lot of you guys. And now that we're at the end of the year and the beginning of the next one, refocusing on goals and rock, but like, what is the goal? What is the true goal that you have for your life's vision? What is the true goal that you have for yourself? What's the true goal that you have for the business that you're in? And then you really are forced to make a decision. Do you want to level up to make that dream come to life? Are you happy with where things are at and you're good with it suffering a slow death? And that's a reality, right? Because if everything gets to continue to grow to be more expensive, which it will, and the dollar continues to decline in value, which it will, at some point you will get squeezed out if you don't level up. That's just, it's an inevitability of the math. It has nothing to do with how anybody feels. It's just, you have to realize that unless things change and unless you change, like you get pushed out on a longer timeline and it does not work in your favor. Whereas if you level up, it compounds in your favor. And these are actually great times to use strategically. And if you're like, I don't know, maybe it's a real conversation to talk about like stepping out of the game or at least stepping out of the vehicle that you're in. And we care about you guys as people, and businesses are only ever the sum of the people that make up its parts. And there might be a chance for you guys to be like, you know what, dude, I love the game of business. I love the game of entrepreneurship. But like, I have found that like me in a gym doing this thing with these people, like maybe that's not what I want to do for the next 10 or 15 years. Cool. There's a way to work on transitioning. But if you haven't thought about what really happens on a longer timeline if you don't step in the right direction, it's worth pausing before you actually give yourself a whole lot of trouble and heartache. Sweet. Next. Okay. Want to keep playing the game? Then start. Like, you have to start. At some point, you will have to become the person that you want to become. And you will never feel like you're ready, and you never feel like you're there, because that's not how it works. And that's why you guys have never felt that sense like in anything in the past ever, because like that's a false construct of the human experience. We are never ready to step into the new identity because it's new. We don't know what it looks like. We don't know what it feels like. We don't know how it operates. We have to bring that to life. So if you want to do it, and if you want the future to be better, start like literally right now in this moment. Just choose to be that person, because at some point you're going to have to make that choice anyway. And then actually execute. And it's hard, and it's every day. And that is the constant, continual reminder. Tony says all the time, like, you have to kill your old self every day.
Not literally, just so we're clear on that.
But like, I know he might not say that literally out loud, but I know he thinks it. Like, that is a core piece of Tony's identity, is to view things through that construct. And you guys need to find those pieces for yourself, like those things that will help you remind yourself to execute as the person you would like to become, because that person's life very truly, literally does depend on it. Like, you guys ever see the meme that floats around or hear the quote that the truest version of hell is on your last day, on your deathbed, the person you became gets to meet the person you could have become? All of your thoughts, actions, and words, like, they determine whether that person ever gets to be alive, or if you have to like sit on your deathbed and like, shit, I missed it. Cool. Next. Okay. Oh, nobody likes this one, but it really is an actual thing. You guys need to write stuff down. I'm going to let you read the slide while I take a drink. And then when you're done reading it, you can just like thumbs up or hand up or like something, so I know. I'm good taking a drink, so whatever, that's long enough. We talk about this stuff, but how many of you guys like really actually do it? That's the important thing to reflect on. And that's the idea of, you have to execute and take the actions that build the identity that you want. Because I would venture to guess the person that you want to be has some pretty fucking clear goals and a pretty clear plan on how those goals actually come to exist. And so if you have the goal and you have the plan, then you need to write like who you need to become, the actions you need to take, and the behaviors you need to take to make that happen. But actually write it down. Appreciate that is the magical gift of like pen and paper. That is something that is disrespectful to your entire lineage, all of your ancestors, and like the process of human evolution entirely to disregard. Like, dude, people fought and died to get printing presses because it advanced the technology of writing so fast. Like, we don't appreciate it. We take it for granted. This never would have happened if we couldn't write. Imagine the period of time like where you couldn't write, and the only way to relay information through is what you could hold in your fucking brain bucket. And we only remember things generally through stories, and most people are shitty storytellers. And at some point, telling stories is a hard way to continue to accumulate information. You have to, well, you don't have to, you choose to. You guys can choose to take part in one of the things that has driven humanity further, faster than anything else. Or not. But if you're not happy with where your life is and you haven't done a lot of writing, I promise you that these things are more related than you would like to suspect. And anybody that's been on the other side of it, they'll be like, yeah, no, sure enough, true story. Next.
1 second before you go to the next slide. Well, you can go to the next slide. It doesn't really matter. But you can go. You can stay there. It doesn't really matter. One thing before Chuck goes into more action things, I want to take a second to revisit what I think maybe we all just breeze past before you think that there's going to be a lot more work. Respectfully, I think everybody's here because there's some degree of rumblings of fear, or you've listened to something. And so no doubt about it, you're here with a hope to understand what you're up against in the future. And so don't overlook the awareness part of what just happened. No doubt about it, the last 10 years of business have been the easiest 10 years of business that have probably existed in anybody's lifetime that you know. And that's been very hard already for a lot of people in the last 10 years. So ask yourself a serious question if you're willing and ready to do the work that needs to be done to move forward. Because as you move into these action things, they're actually really a lot of fun. And they're things that you should have been doing all along when it was easy and you still weren't doing them then. So I'm worried that if you don't bring awareness, you're not going to bring the action. And so as we move through that whole thing, talking about the dollar and the inflation and things that are largely over everybody's head, I don't want everybody to just get overwhelmed and be like, just tell me what to do. You need to know where you're at to figure out where you're going to go to. And as somebody who can tell you with certainty that writing saved my life, if you would have told me that 10 years ago before I had awareness, I would have told you to fuck off, right? There's things that are going to come up in this action plan that aren't hard. They're important and they're necessary, but they will be useless without awareness. And so one of the problems with us doing these things is that we never want to talk at you guys. And so hopefully this doesn't come across that way. But there's a lot of work to be done if you guys are going to do the thing that needs to get done, which is essentially save the planet, for lack of a better way to explain it. The work's going to have to get done. It's never been easier than it was. Now you have to ask yourself if you're willing to do the work when it gets hard. That's all I had to say.
Preach. Yeah, but Lisa, like if you'll go back to slide 7. I mean, for any of you guys, go back and just kind of insert roughly whatever your birth year was on that chart. And look at it for a second. And how many periods of economic cycle have you already lived through? And so that's why so much of this isn't necessarily like tools and tactics at this stage, but it's the reality of like, well, as long as you plan on living longer than you've lived at present, and you plan on like your skill set as an entrepreneur and your business being better in the future than it was in the past, this is really all about you, because you are going to have to execute and operate and exist in good times and in bad times over and over and over again. And the one constant is you. And the one thing you can control is you, your thoughts, your actions, your beliefs. So take a little bit of peace in that. It will get hard because it always gets hard. And then it will get easier because it always gets easier. But you need to be invested in realizing that you are the thing that has the ability to make the best or the worst of any situation. Because even in those periods of wild economic expansion where it's really easy for everybody, plenty of businesses cease to exist. Plenty of people end up in bad situations. So it is about driving yourself forward. Lisa, if you will jump down to, I'll pull you a slide number. We're back on 12. You can go there. And I got to swap slides. Cool. Anything that you guys want to chat about, talk, clarify on just like, the ideas of recession, inflation, and identity? Sweet. Let's go to the next one. All right. So like actually transitioning from like, hey, we did the writing thing, the goals thing. Like we really stopped and appreciated it. Like Tony said, not just like in the breeze past it, because that's the kind of stuff that we talk about, but like really lean in, because this is what makes the difference between who you are and who you want to be. But now moving into like actually doing something with those actions. Awareness precedes action. You guys have heard us say that a million times. You have to become truly, truly aware of your numbers and what they mean. If you don't understand your finances, you will get bled out. And that could be faster, it could be slow. And so like the easy example is if you only have a 10% profit margin and your expenses rise by 30%, here's how quickly you're fucked and the degree to which you are fucked. You guys can run the math. Like, look at it. And so most of the businesses that exist in our ecosystem have a far, far, far smaller profit margin than the related increase and rise in expenses, especially relative to also the simultaneous decline in the purchasing power. You have to know your numbers. You don't get the luxury of not knowing your numbers anymore. But when you know your numbers, you have the awareness that precedes the action, so you can do cool stuff with them. Next, cash flow is king, always and forever, but especially in the periods where everybody else is playing it exceptionally safe and where prices for some things end up declining. Home prices will correct. Cool. If you secured cash flow, that might be a great time to take advantage of it. There's also the ability to make better decisions by being able to predict further out. And that was something that Tony had mentioned in the group call is if you can't actually make any projections or forward forecasts, you're going to have a really hard time making decisions in business. And consequently, have a hard time making decisions in life. And that ability to like forward forecast and work backwards, it's the idea of starting with the big goal and figuring out like, well, what does it actually cost to make that goal happen? And what are the stages that get us there along the way? And what do we need to see happening with the cash flow to make that happen? One thing that is really nice about the affiliate space that a lot of you guys take for granted is that it is based on recurring memberships. Most businesses would absolutely, quite literally, and do kill to make that happen. Like cigarette companies literally kill people to make sure that it's recurring revenue. Does that make sense? You guys had the supreme fortune of building a business from the very beginning that is generally based around growing this recurring influx of cash where you get the ability to sell to the same people over and over and over and over again. That is a supremely good fortune that you probably don't appreciate until you can kind of like step outside and think about it. And you're like, dude, how hard would McDonald's have to work to try to get somebody to eat there 5 days a week? Pretty hard, which is why you see them spend billions and billions and billions of dollars on marketing and placement. So really build and secure your base of recurring revenue because that's what allows you to forward forecast and make projections in a much better way. This probably could have been back in like the identity side of things, but it is relative to cash flow. So let's say you guys have these recurring expenses that are, maybe you got like 3 different bills that are all $300 a piece. Would you consider taking on debt to pay those off? And you're like, well, more debt seems like weird and scary. Take it into an IDS with your coach and like, you know, for sure, scope of practice. We will advise you to also talk to your accountants and your lawyers. But if we took out a line of credit at present day dollars that I had to pay way out in the future with way cheaper dollars that are worth way less money, could I actually take on that larger debt load to kill those 3 $300 bills and replace them with a single $400 bill that I get to pay back over time in future money that is worth like nothing? That is a true objective thing. But if you've lived in a narrative of like all debt is bad debt and like money stuff is scary and I'm going to ignore it, you would never think that like, oh, that could actually be hugely advantageous. And there's absolutely no reason not to just look at that. Cool. Next. So we talked about cash flow, looking at, you know, what can we do to be intelligent with our expenses? What can we do to know our expenses? And what can we do to build predictable, consistent, recurring revenue? In the bigger side of things, how you guys build and structure your offers and your money models, that is really the silver bullet that helps you solve for everything. Value always matters more than price. Price is a story. You have the ability to control both sides of the conversation, like if you so choose. You are not competing in the Globo Gym world where the offering is so similar and is so impossible to really change or vary that like you're trapped in somebody else's price conversation and also somebody else's value conversation. Because what happens if somebody goes into LA Fitness, but they want to get a package that involves open access and nutrition and a class and coaching? Well, they just kind of have to sit there with their hands in their pockets, because like in LA Fitness, that doesn't exist. You have the ability to make that thing exist. You need to make those things exist because people are silently screaming to be led. And it is also what allows you to, you know, ethically deliver on your promise while also securing your profit. In your coaching calls, you guys probably get guided to looking at something like trying to secure the first 3 months of profit for a client in the initial transaction, because most people churn in the first 3 months. So as long as we can make sure that we don't spend 3 months of their time and energy and money really just like taking up space and consuming our time, energy, and effort, then like that's a much better decision for both parties. And initially, a lot of you guys move into conversations on price, and you're having to rewire your brains to think about it differently. But really, isn't that the worst thing that you could possibly do to them, is offer them something at a lower price that didn't deliver value because it didn't actually solve problems, and then they were also gone. You have an ethical obligation to do the thing better, but part of what allows you to do the thing better is to be able to charge more for it. And how you structure it is what gives that price the value to substantiate it. And then you guys can also be way more creative with how you transact for it than many of you are and do, at least initially. And you guys, we always encourage you to look at, you know, what can you take and steal from our own model. There is a lot to be able to secure the profit and the cash flow health on the front end, but also build a reoccurring base around it on the other side. And I think something that is helpful to keep it in mind, especially if money stuff is yucky for you to think about and to mess with and to fuck with, and like that's a hard conversation for you, is like, really, what if you only had 12 weeks to get them as far towards their goal as possible? Like that's what we look at. We want to see that in 1 quarter, could we potentially part company and know that like, dude, you know what, this affiliate, this owner, these coaches, this staff, these clients, like they're on a better trajectory. And you know what, their future is probably going to be all right. So approach it from that perspective. You will do more for them faster. You will lock in far more profit faster. But then if you also keep in mind, you know, the 2 slides ago, building the recurring revenue on the back end is what benefits you, and it delivers the accountability for them. I would suggest that most of you guys as clients, if we surveyed you, you'd say that in a lot of ways you worked a whole lot harder at the beginning of the relationship than you do like in some of like the mid-cycle pieces. And you'll see the same thing in your gym, but the idea is, can you as a business make enough money, and for them as a client, get them enough progress fast enough that both parties are okay with those ebbs and flows? So look at it from a place of reciprocity and really solving both people's problems. Next, build an asset. If you're going to have to work a whole lot harder in your business, you might as well have something that continues to pay you dividends, hopefully like forever. And so when we look at things like not paying attention to expenses and cash flow, if you had the luxury of not doing that when it was good, and you do figure it out when it's bad, keeping that habit, keeping those records, awesome, you get to win forever. If you think about having to manage your staff in low points, if you think about all of the systems and processes that have to come to exist to make it through tough times, do it the right way, and you have something that can pay you for the rest of your life. That is what we want for you guys. We want you guys to benefit from the lives that you're changing and the work that you're doing as long as you possibly can, because you deserve it. You do save and change people's lives, but unless you build something that gives you the ability to benefit from that in the long term, the only thing that you have, and not to discount from its value, is like the feels. Dude, there's a ton of clients from our gym that like, I feel really good about what I did for them. But I also get to look at the house that Vanessa and I are in and know that like, oh, and the gym that we built and that we sold is part of a thing that like we get to live in now still, even 5 years later, and that we get to appreciate from like the equity growing in it for as long as we choose to own it. Build a business, please. It will benefit you for a very, very long time. And very few of your competitors do it in the good times, which is why they end up disappearing in the bad times. It's the difference, because at a point, like, the hobby has to turn into a business, and at a point the business has to turn into an organization. And the more you can turn into an actual, like, organizational business entity, enterprise, as an actual asset, the better off everybody is. Because that's also like having better hiring processes. That's also having better onboarding and training processes. If you think about it like building the business that can thrive even in the worst of times, even if you couldn't do the things yourself, you're going to be all right. And you're going to be all right over and over and over again. But it'll be just like the clients that get through OnRamp and they go through like those first couple classes and they're like, all right, so I thought I was fit before. It turns out I'm not very fit. I don't know if I really actually like what being fit is or what it takes to get there. But what did you do? Same thing they did, right? Like you suffer through those first couple times, you get the Karen quads, and you're like, other pieces of my life are getting immeasurably better by this one thing that I choose to like focus on and measure. And if you've never measured your finances and really paid attention to them, you might find the same thing exists there. A lot of these things compound across all of the areas of your life because like you are the constant in all of those problems. And so figuring out how to solve the problems can get applied in all kinds of different interesting contexts. Build an asset. Next. Understand arbitrage. That's a fancy word to mean like trading things for higher amounts of value than the value that you need to exchange for them. The stuff that normally exists in a gym is normally just like the idea of classes versus PT. Owners usually transition from doing all the things themselves to they get, a couple PT clients. A couple PT clients pays for an enormous number of classes to be covered. Then they start realizing that if they handle like the consult in the sales process and they close that larger upfront transaction, that makes a lot more money. That pays a lot more people to do other things like PT and class. The process keeps going and growing from there. So you have to recognize the places where you've kind of bottlenecked yourself and you are doing things that are low value. And low value is just in the objective sense. That's not to take anything away from or diminish, coaching a class. Coaching a class is incredible. It really is. But until you have a business that generates extra profit for you as the owner, you have to make the decision, am I coaching this class because I choose to and because it's still beneficial for everybody involved? Or am I doing this thing because it makes me feel some kind of way and financially I can kind of sort of justify it, but it is at the expense of a whole lot of other growth. You guys have to get yourself to the point that you're working on like bigger visionary things. And that's what creates the freedom to go back and do whatever you want, however you want. It's amazing to just jump into a class and help one of your other coaches out because you can. When they're like, shit, I didn't know that you were even going to be here to do this at all. And you're like, yeah, neither did I. But I was grabbing coffee down the street and I saw that like class was at capacity and today's got muscle ups and like, fuck it. I figured I could cruise in and help you out. I can do a little coaching development for you. I can scratch my itch and like everybody gets to, see the mayor of fitness and I can kiss babies, rub bellies, and shake hands. Dude, that's the best way to ever exist in your gym. You are never taken away from all the things, but you have to be able to create the identity, to execute on the actions, to create that arbitrage opportunity where you're like, you know what? I did the hard work and I know that that consult's going down. These PT sessions are going down. So this class right now, I can do whatever I want with it. I can walk in, I can walk out. I can take part in it, or I can just go home. You guys need to identify those things. So as you start to really force yourself to encounter learning about your numbers in a better way, this is where you do something useful with that information. Look for what things are low value, and not that they don't feel good, but like what are the things that can no longer be a justifiable use of your time and energy because somebody else can do them as good or potentially better for the same amount of money or less. You guys are the owners of the businesses. Everybody can do it for less than you can do it because you have an unlimited ceiling on what you could generate and earn. Use a VA. In part of that idea of managing cash flow, managing expenses, looking at, if dollars are getting smaller and things cost more of them, how do I make the whole equation work a whole lot better? Dude, there's tons of stuff you guys could, should, and need to use VAs for if you want to advance your life. How many of you guys have ever ended up on a customer support call and you've been frustrated because, you know, Gamesh from Bangalore, India is trying to like walk you through an iPhone update. Apple has more cash than nearly every other company in the entire planet combined. There is a reason. They can take something like an iPhone, they can take that $1,500 and they can turn it into thousands of hours of labor. Those are lessons that are just repeated over and over and over again. And this actually kind of speaks to like offer stuff. And this is part of, I think, what is helpful for you guys to think about. I didn't expect to talk about offers in this, by the way, but it's the value proposition that you guys provide as coaches. It's like, hey, you're today years old and you've struggled with diet and exercise your entire life. I know how to solve diet and exercise. You can either keep paying it through time, energy, effort, money, and failed purchases for the rest of your life. Or in the next 12 weeks, we can be done with that. And that frees up all of your time and all of your energy and all of your money. And that is the presentation to the client, but it's also what you get to think about. That's what you create. You take all of your seminars, all your clinics, all your workshops, all your years on the floor, and all of that shit that you put inside of your head, you can get out to somebody else and save them through all of those trials and tribulations and pieces of heartache. And so like arbitrage your own information, arbitrage your own experience. You guys have suffered endlessly like for all of what you have. But now there is an incremental cost to you distilling that to somebody else. Once you take 10 years to learn 10-year lessons, you can give them to other people in 10 words. Hire better people. Like that is a 3-word lesson that takes most people a lifetime to learn and understand. And in that lesson for you guys is the VA. And the VA is really relevant to the idea of like the recession, the inflation, because there's a ton of tasks that don't make sense to look to a coach to do for you, because like coaches are coaches. Maybe they super sweet spot, absolutely love doing shit in Canva. But man, that's few and far between. And like, so if they're not really good at it and they don't like it and it doesn't make sense, like there's a million other people that are actually dying literally to have that opportunity. People whose families would otherwise starve if you will not give them meaningful, gainful employment from the other side of the world. If you guys like want the world to be at a better place and it's hard for you to like use a VA because you feel some kind of like weird guilt about not doing the thing yourself, keep in mind that like you're keeping rice out of somebody else's bowl. There's a ton of things that are really low value to you that don't make sense for you to do, that you probably also don't even like doing, that can substantially change somebody else's life. And that's a really cool way to start looking at business. Can you be proud of the dollars that you're putting into like expending on payroll? And a VA is like somebody on the other side of the world that you get to sponsor. And that's fucking sweet. And also not, because they might be like somebody down the street from you that's a really high level graphic designer that's just doing freelance work. So like it exists on a continuum. Next. But really stop being distracted, start getting traction. Use the awareness that you're forced to cultivate to proceed the actions that you have to take if you really want to be the person that you want to be when you grow up. Spoiler alert, like nobody needed anything on this entire webinar. Nobody really even needs anything that I've ever told them or that Tony's ever told them. We, just like you, have the answers to our problems. We know how to solve the shit that bothers us. We do. We generally just need somebody to believe in us, or we need to create our ability to believe that that's the right solution, or you just need permission to be like, dude, be the fuck who you want to be, and you can be that person right now. Your future self, like, will either live or die based on the identity that you create and the actions that you take. And nobody else can do that for you. And so even though the pitch and the presentation of all of this was very much like recession, inflation, it's all the shit you guys know. Like the basic stuff in business, you have to get better at it because the market demands it to be such. And you can just go back to that, like that minor difference in profit and expense and see how like, dude, it puts you out of business if you don't confront it. The dragon under the bed needs a flashlight on him, and you're going to find that like none of it's bad. And it's the thing that'll also build you an asset that pays you forever. And it's the thing that lets you do a better job for the people in your care, both staff and clients. And that's super rad. You guys, you have the supreme good fortune of existing in a negative period economically as business owners. And normally everybody's like, they bitch and moan and they whine about like, woe is me. But it's like, dude, fuck yeah. If there are less businesses to compete with, inherently your business is already in a better position strategically. Dude, if people care more about value than price, then when you can actually deliver on value, you sit in a very unique place because you guys sit to where you can benefit somebody's entire life, all day, every day for the rest of their life. And most people can't make that promise and ever deliver on it. So you sit in a good place and you're good people and you deserve good things, but you're going to have to act in accordance with what it is that you want to come out the backside of it. At least you can go to the next one. It's funny because I put that in previous to Tony even jumping on earlier, or Tony's little tag that he came up with as we were recording the podcast. And if you can't read it because it's tiny screen, it just says, go and do something useful. Next. Cool. Anything and everything you guys want to talk about that relates to any of it, like fair game. If you don't really understand economically what any of it means, we can talk about that. If you'd rather actually focus on what to do about it, we can talk about that. If you want to talk through actual strategies, tools, like real world shit, this is not a coaching call. This is not, okay, I love the idea of building a foundation when things are hard. Okay, we can talk on that. Anybody else got anything else they want to contribute?
I think the first most important thing is that Chuck gets a round of applause for piloting the first of what is going to be regular webinars and town halls. So he gets a round of applause for that one. One thing I want to say, mostly because I haven't really said much of anything, is good news. You guys are going to win. Affiliates will absolutely win, but you're going to have to play. And Chuck said that to you guys enough times through here. But the thing is the whole world is scared, yourselves included, but chaos is a superpower. And if you are on the other side of coaching, inside the portal will be located the chaos action plan for you to put some of these things into practice. Because in order for chaos to become a superpower, you're going to have to understand it, catalog it, categorize it, and then overcome it. But the affiliate model is designed to persevere. It's literally was built that way. You've probably heard us say it 100 times that it's perfect. And this is the exact reason why it's perfect. It's impervious to external influence. And that's why it was built the way that it was. Because bottom line is, it provides value. It's individual. It's got recurring memberships. The list literally goes on for you guys. So the things that are going to affect outside companies, so to speak, aren't going to affect the affiliate model. You guys can write your own rules. That's the most important thing. Business is really pretty simple. If you can spend more money to acquire a customer than your competitor can, you're going to always win. And you guys as affiliates can always change your offer. The fixed models can't. Franchises are stuck. They're like, Burger King, McDonald's, et cetera, that you know as franchises can only raise their prices so much. They have to spend way more money to get that same customer back. You don't have to do that. You can change your entire model on a Tuesday, on a Thursday, it doesn't really matter. But the most important thing you guys have to remember is that fitness, regardless of recession eras, is a non-negotiable. Once people have experienced it, they're not going to go without it. As long as you guys understand value versus price, you're going to win. But you got to understand value. That's all I got to say.
So yeah, anything anybody want to like add to? Because I want to speak to the idea of building a base in maybe like an atypical way, but anything else you guys want to throw in? We got about 10 minutes. Sweet, Thug Life, send it. You guys get to write the rules. You don't have to operate on the idea of, hey, I own a gym that is based on recurring monthly memberships, so I build my base by building the recurring monthly memberships. How many of you guys drink a protein shake nearly every day of your life and have for the better part of like the last X number of years since fitness became a lifestyle? Cool, right? Because like for all of us at some point, like that is a piece of the identity. And that's an important way for you guys to think about identity. If I choose to be a person who fitness is a part of my identity in my life, oh, this is just a thing that I do. And so I would venture to guess that most of your clients, there's tons of stuff like that that you can use to help them reach their goals, solve their problems, live in the aspirational identity that they would like to have, but you also end up way better off. Like 20% of your gym for sure would almost unequivocally be happy to have recurring supplement purchases as a part of their membership. But they're like, great, I don't have to think about when I run out. Great, it's here. Great, it's what you like. Great, it's what you guys all take. Great, because like I want to be more like you guys, and if I don't have to make decisions, and if I don't have to think about it, and I don't have to do it because you make it fucking friction free, cool. Hey, every first Tuesday of the month, your protein bag is going to be on the counter. Go ahead and grab it. Your names are on it. Okay, everybody wins. So that would be like an idea of looking at what you can do to benefit people that also continues to build the base. Because if you can figure out that system and that process, and you can get people to do it because you have figured out growing your skill set enough that when there's less dollars for them to do it with, it's a whole lot fucking easier. And the government's like, let's print $3.2 trillion and see what happens. Then you can be like, hey, guess what? Now 80% of the gym is buying protein every month. And all of a sudden, like, oh my God, my whole life is different because I have the ability to engage in arbitrage. I have a business asset that prints money on demand that allows me to hire great people from anywhere to do things that I can't do or don't want to do. And so that's the idea of using the business as the disproportionate asset for arbitrage, because most people don't make money when they sleep. Most people can just be like, we should make more money tomorrow. You guys have the ability to do that. And it is often lost on us because we're like fighting fires and we're working in the day-to-day. But when you do have the ability to increase any piece of your margin that you so choose, and you can do it with the very next person that walks through the door, man, you're in a good place. Giving another example of it, the idea of building an asset. That's not just your business. That's the things that exist within it. Sell your sawdust. How many of you guys have a laundry list of questions that you have answered 1,000 times for 1,000 clients? Well, if 1,000 people have asked you 1,000 times and you know the actual question, the actual answer, like the product's already built for you. Just go back through your last 4 years of emails and copy and paste all those basic Q&As about like, all right, look, here's why you don't need to worry about being bulky. Fucking whatever. Their problem, their question, and their words, and the thing that you have answered 1,000 times, does that also give you a demographic to market to super specifically? Does that also help you take the idea of like creating an offer and be like, oh, you know what? These 5 types of people ask that question on retweet. And those 5 types of people, this is exactly how we consistently solve their problems. Great. Now I know exactly who I'm talking to. I know the exact problem they want to solve. I know exactly how they want it solved. And we're good here. Sam recently built, well, fuck, you got a couple minutes. Talk about your digital product super quick. It's a Twitter post. Go.
The short version is it's a resource for helping CrossFit coaches understand the thing that we have to do all the time, which is teach, see, and correct. And that's super important. But
cool.
There can be a system
for less words. You're limited to literally like 2 words. Online course? Ebook?
Ebook.
Cool. There we go. So get with Sam if you want to know what it does. But the idea is like he had the ability to take his accumulated time, energy, and effort, produce a thing that now he has no incremental cost to sell again and again and again and again. And so he creates disproportionate arbitrage. Like he's taken a thing that at this point for him is free. It doesn't cost anymore because he already paid for it in the past with time, energy, and effort. And so now people can give him $20 for air, basically. And so you guys aren't limited to just looking at building and growing the membership base. You can take the things out of your head, put them on paper. That's part of like the idea of writing. Sam wrote an ebook. Lisa wrote an ebook. Tony has written every day on the FitFilliate Instagram nonstop for 3 years. I've written a ton of stuff. Like writing is where it usually starts for most people because it gets to develop a skill that helps you get stuff out of your head that improves you as a human and improves your skill set. But it's also where you guys will start recognizing developing the skill of copywriting. You'll be able to be better in your communication, more clear and precise with your words. And incidentally, you can also think about it with the writing as building assets that you can sell forever. For Sarah or on Sam. Yeah. So different ways to start writing. Don't ever think it, just start. So many people are trying to figure out like, what's the perfect program? What's the best way to do it? Just literally do it. Build it as you would build a habit. And so that is an easier way to approach it. If you haven't read Atomic Habits, that is probably the starting point for actually figuring out how to start writing, is by thinking about it from the construct of as a habit. But I would suggest that before you even go that far, to probably look at it like Tony and I do. It is a non-negotiable for building the life that most of you guys want to have. And we can only say that with some degree of certainty because we're very selective of the people that exist in our life, in our sphere, in our ecosystem. So based on the types of people that you are and the things that you want to accomplish for yourselves and those in your care, writing is a part of that future. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. And so I know that to be true. So Atomic Habits, to look at writing from a habit standpoint. And then if you want to look at writing, like truly just specifically like writing, I would go to a book called Bird by Bird. And that is actually how to curate like writing as a skill, but also a lot of the same honest conversation on the fears, doubts, and insecurities that exist for all humans as a piece of the human experience, but in the context of writing rather than like entrepreneurship or fitness. But it helps you really understand like, oh, everybody feels like this way more often than not. All right, fuck it, we're good here. Send it. I guess we're about at the end of our window. I don't know who needs to go. Who does need to go? I don't know. I clicked on the wrong thing. Okay.
So Sam's just asked to.
Never mind. I forgot that we had set for an hour and a
half. Sam's just asked a question on writing that there was such a huge difference maker for him. Can you speak to different ways people can start that?
So the resources, Atomic Habits, to look at writing from a habit-driven standpoint, and Bird by Bird as the actual like kind of resource on developing that. But as far as that, like, I don't know, Sam, speak to it yourself. What did you do, and what would you have liked to have been different in that?
I started with Twitter,
okay,
which was easy because I didn't have anything there already. And I wish I had realized earlier that there was zero downside to just writing into a vacuum.
Oof, that is the grandest of life lessons. And if any of you guys, and stay on Sam because it's still his thing, but like on the idea of like fear, doubt, insecurity, if that's a piece of what holds you back from anything, you know, whether it's like writing or just like doing more, you exist in a vacuum at first because you suck and nobody knows about you. And even if you don't suck, and even if a whole bunch of people do know about you, it turns out nobody actually gives a shit because they're all worried about their own stuff. But yeah, like if you've never done it, do it.
I feel like everybody has trauma around writing. Right? Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things where like you spend your whole childhood, adulthood, or otherwise being told that your writing wasn't good enough because it got graded. But like writing is like literally the purest form of metacognition. Right? It's literally just thinking in practice. And so think very, like Sam said, spend a little time thinking about where you're going to put or publish the writing, but just start writing. I mean, we obviously care a whole lot about it, and I say it in joking a lot of times, but I can tell you that it literally was the skill that saved my life. It is something that's very cathartic to me. It's necessary, it's vital, and it's something that I spent, I don't know, my entire life thinking I was bad at because people told me I was. But without that tool, how do you know how to convey the knowledge to other people? How do you know how to improve that? How can you be critical of that? And that's all writing is your ability to think and think critically and then rethink, because that's the most important thing. You'd be surprised what you write out and then read and then be like, oh, that actually sounds incredibly stupid. And then you just rewrite it. Who cares? But start writing, but just literally just start. That's all you have to do. You could tweet it. You could put it in your notes app. You could do whatever you want. But I assure you, if you invest in it, despite what your English teachers will tell you, you're going to get good at it.
You operate in a different marketplace. That the reward structure is no longer like the red pen on the teacher's desk. It's the creation of value. And so that's like on the external side, but for you, like it creates value internally. And dude, if you've struggled with some shit, but you've never actually wrote it down, that is a part of you being able to understand your own thinking. if you have patterns in your life that you continue to repeat despite like your claim that you do not like these patterns and you do not like where they put you, have you ever sat down to write about like what that pattern is, why it shows up, what you know about it, what you think about it, what you don't like about it, and how you would like it to change? And anything that you do in that construct, fortunately, because of the space you guys exist in, is a curatable asset that can be monetized. You guys exist in different contexts and capacity, like in the self-help world, in the personal development world. And so the beauty of that is that anything that you put pen to paper with or like fingers on a keyboard, you have the ability to pull an asset out the backside. It also gets to help other people. It's really hard for like the dude that, I don't know, fucking nobody else. Well, I'm the only one that's installed shit in here, so it's a bad example. But like a guy that hangs blinds probably doesn't have like a huge audience for like the trials and tribulations of the blind hanger. I mean, maybe he does, but he's got to get like real good at paid traffic. But like you guys are dealing with people that want to look better and feel better and live longer, better, healthier, happier lives. And they're going through a human experience. And so they suffer through all of the same things that all of us do. And that's the actual game that you guys get to play in. And so maybe making it more tangible and useful, like even in the gym sense with your coaches. If you have coaches that make dumb decisions relative to how they run classes based on what you believe, programming should look like, or periodization should look like, or like anything, write about it. That's part of how you understand your thinking, and also, see Sarah, understand your own thinking, but also the ability to convey it to somebody else. Well,
cool.
What else? If you're happy,
nothing else coming through on the feed for questions. So
the most important thing that's going to get you through the recession is aligning your actions and your intentions. That's it. If you guys can be very critical of the person who you want to be and measuring the person that you are and making sure that those two people are congruent and that the actions align with that future intention, you're going to win. You can't lose. Doesn't matter what the game is. Now it's more important than ever, though.
Sweet. Well, thank any of you guys that had the ability to jump on and watch or listen. Thank you for those of you that sent some questions, comments in. Happy to distribute it to anybody, everybody. So feel free to let us know what channel you would like, and we'll get Lisa to send you over the recording, and we'll make the slides available as well. Actually,
the recording will be available.
Yeah,
on our YouTube.
We're gonna put it up somewhere, and then you can just put your email address in, and then it'll get sent to you, so that like Lisa doesn't live in your state.
It's a treasure hunt. You'll have to find it.
The recording will be automatically uploaded to YouTube and the Facebook group and our Facebook page as well. So people just need to comment on that. We'll hit them up with a copy of the slides, and we'll
you can just build like an opt into an autoresponder where like they can just put in whatever email address you guys want to have it sent to, and we'll just get the slides sent over. That way you can have them when you want them.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks, guys. This is our first foray into this field, and we had some viewers in the live stream through the various channels, so that was exciting. And thanks for bearing with us as we figured out the technology. And great job, Chuck.
Tell us what webinars you want.
Yep.
Dude, all we seek to do is really just like help and deliver value, and we always end up in an opportunity where we have a chance to learn a thing, refine our own thinking, or improve ourselves. And so as evidence that the people who we seek to become, we like Tony and I, and the people we choose to align ourselves with, ready, fire, aim, fuck it, like we'll do webinars on anything. Yep. This was the first. It didn't get rehearsed. I finished the slides, full honesty and transparency, about 20 minutes before we started. But to, put our money where our mouth is, like in our internal meeting, looking at our coach's internal meeting yesterday as a company in FitFilliate, like the question was posed like, hey, are we trying to grow coaches faster than we could grow clients? And the answer is always like, no, because more people need help. And so even if you're like, big, scary talking heads on the news, inflation, recession, World War III, Russia, Ukraine, China, fuck it, dude. What is the life that you want to have and who's in it? Because if you want to live a bigger, better, bolder life, like these become inevitable decisions and actions. I feel confident and comfortable enough that like, fuck, and it is not through like ego or arrogance, but like Vanessa and I probably couldn't have come up with a more expensive business to start outside of like a car dealership or an actual like software company that's not bootstrapping. But dude, if nobody else is entering the game, that's a really, really good time to get really, really good. Love you dudes. Thank you guys. Please let us know how we can help, whether that's jumping on a call, not a consult call, not a sales call. Literally shred your credit cards and tell your bank that you lost it so you can't actually even have it and you have to wait for a new one to get there because like we don't give a shit. That's not the point. We'll sit on the phone with you to solve a problem. We'll sit on a call with you to just talk through like what the struggle is and what it would look like for it to be better if nobody's ever even asked you. And maybe you just need somebody to ask you what you would want to do with a magic wand. And whatever you want to do with a magic wand, it's probably going to take you more than this economic cycle to make it through. So fuck it. Be the person that has that magic in their life and just execute no matter what. Love you dudes a ton and catch you in the next one.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Go out and crush it. Go do something useful, to quote Tony. And we'll see you on the next one.
Thanks, Lisa.